It was July of 1972, and I was 19, working as a laborer on the San Juanico Bridge construction site. The job wasn't glamorous. Hauling cement bags, mixing gravel, and sweating under the unrelenting Samar sun, but paid enough to keep my family fed. The bridge was a big deal, connecting Samar and Leyte, part of the Pan-Philippine Highway. Everyone talked about it like it was a marvel, a gift from President Marcos to his wife, Imelda. They called it the Bridge of Love. I didn't care about the politics. I just needed the work. The site was chaotic from the start. Cranes groaned, trucks rumbled, and foremen barked orders over the constant clanging of metal. The San Juanico Strait stretched out below, its dark waters churning with secrets I didn't yet understand. At dusk, when the work slowed, the place took on a different feel. The air grew heavy, and the distant hum of waves sounded like whispers. I'd catch workers glancing at the water, their faces tight, like they'd seen something they wouldn't name. My shift usually ended at 6 p.m., but sometimes we'd stay late to meet quotas. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky a bruised purple, I noticed fewer workers than usual. The site felt emptier, quieter. I asked my friend Danilo where everyone was. He shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "Some guys didn't show up today," he said, his voice low. "Heard they're scared of the night shift now." I laughed it off. Scared of what? Overtime pay was hard to come by. But Danilo didn't laugh. He looked toward the water, where the bridge's foundation pillars sank into the strait. "You hear about the kids?" he asked. I shook my head. He hesitated, then leaned closer. "People say kids in the streets, beggars, orphans, they're going missing. Last seen around here." I felt a chill despite the humid air. "That's just talk," I said, trying to sound sure. Danilo didn't answer. He just picked up his shovel and went back to work. The next few weeks, I started noticing things. Tools went missing, only to turn up in strange places, like a hammer balanced on a beam no one could have reached without a ladder. At night, I'd hear sounds, soft thumps, like something heavy dropping into the water, but when I'd look, there was nothing. Once, I swore I heard a child's voice, faint and pleading, carried on the wind. I told myself it was exhaustion playing tricks. Construction sites were noisy, unpredictable. That's all it was. One night in August, I stayed late to finish pouring concrete for a support column. The air was thick with the smell of wet cement and rust. Most of the crew had left, and the site was lit by flickering floodlights that cast long, jittery shadows. I was alone, or so I thought, when I heard footsteps crunching on gravel behind me. I turned, expecting Danilo or the foreman, but no one was there, just the empty stretch of the unfinished bridge, its steel skeleton gleaming faintly under the moon. I called out, my voice swallowed by the vastness of the strait. No answer. Then a splash, sharp and deliberate, came from the water below. My heart thudded. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it at the strait, but the beam barely pierced the darkness. The water was still, except for a faint ripple near one of the pillars. I told myself it was a fish, maybe debris falling from the site, but my hands were shaking as I packed up and left. The next day, I overheard two older workers talking near the supply tent. They spoke in hushed Tagalog, their voices tense. "Another one's gone," one said. "Boy from Tacloban, 10 years old, seen near the site last night." The other shook his head. "They won't stop until it's done." I wanted to ask what they meant, but something in their eyes, fear, maybe resignation, kept me quiet. I didn't tell them about the splash I'd heard. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. By September, the rumors were impossible to ignore. Locals whispered about vanishings. Street kids, mostly, the kind no one would miss. They said the bridge demanded blood, an old belief from before my time. My Lola used to tell stories about Padugo, spilling animal blood to appease spirits for a building's safety. But this felt different, darker. I started noticing how the foremen watched us, their eyes lingering on the younger workers, the ones without families. I told myself I was paranoid, but I stopped staying late. One afternoon, I was assigned to clean out a section of the foundation trench. It was grueling work, digging through mud and rock under the bridge's shadow. The trench was deep, the air damp and sour. As I shoveled, my spade hit something soft, not stone. I froze, my stomach twisting. I scraped away the dirt in there, half buried. Was a small shoe, a child's sandal, worn and caked with mud. My breath caught. I glanced around, but I was alone. No one had seen. I should have reported it. I know that now. But I was scared. Scared of what it meant. Scared of what might happen if I spoke up. I covered the sandal with dirt and kept working, my hands trembling. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that shoe, imagining who it belonged to, where they were now. The next day, I asked to be reassigned to another task. The foreman didn't ask why, just nodded like he understood. As the months passed, the bridge took shape. Its arches rose, graceful and proud, a marvel to anyone who didn't know the cost. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Workers started quitting, citing bad dreams or accidents no one could explain. One man swore he saw a figure standing on the unfinished deck at midnight, a small shape, motionless, watching him. He never came back. By early 1973, I was one of the few from my original crew still there. The vanishings had slowed, or maybe people just stopped talking about them. The bridge was nearly done, and the higher-ups were pushing for a big ceremony to celebrate. They said Imelda herself would attend, that it was her birthday gift from the president. I didn't care. I just wanted to finish my contract and leave. The night before the ceremony, I was on cleanup duty, sweeping debris from the bridge's deck. It was past 10 p.m., the air cool and heavy with the scent of salt. The strait was silent, no waves, no wind. I was near the lady's side when I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping like footsteps. I stopped, gripping my broom. The sound came closer, then stopped. I turned slowly, my flashlight beam cutting through the dark. There, at the edge of the light, was a boy. He looked about 8, his clothes ragged, his face smudged with dirt. He stood still, staring at me with eyes that didn't blink. My mouth went dry. "Hey," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." He didn't move, didn't speak. Then, slowly, he raised one hand and pointed at the pillar behind me, the same one I poured concrete for months ago. I don't know why, but I looked. The pillar was just a pillar, gray and solid, no different from the others. When I turned back, the boy was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just an empty deck stretching into the night. My heart pounded so hard I thought it had burst. I dropped the broom and ran, not stopping until I was off the bridge, back on solid ground. The next day, the ceremony went on as planned. Crowds gathered, officials gave speeches, and Imelda smiled for the cameras. I watched from a distance, my hands still shaking from the night before. The bridge gleamed under the sun, beautiful and terrible. I quit that afternoon, told the foreman I was done, no explanation. He didn't argue. I moved to Manila a month later, trying to forget. But the bridge followed me, not in dreams, but in moments. A child's laugh in a crowded market. A shadow moving too fast on a quiet street. Years later, I heard stories about San Juanico, ghostly soldiers, a woman in white, a headless priest. I don't know if they're true, but I know what I saw, what I heard, what I buried in that trench. I'm older now, and I don't talk about it much. People call it folklore, superstition. Maybe they're right. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that boy, his unblinking eyes, his pointing hand. And I wonder if the bridge is still hungry, if it's still taking what it needs to stand. I haven't gone back to Samar. I don't think I ever will.